The highlight of this week, obviously, is going to be Shavuos. On Shavuos, we celebrate Zman Matan Torah, saying at the time when we got the Torah, when the Eibishter gave us the Torah. Now, I want to dig quite deeply into what Torah actually is and why it makes such a difference that the Eibishter gave it to us on Shavuos. And all of that I want to talk about in the context of what we're going through now, because there are several different places, different midrashim and Zohar and various places where there are different variations of statements along the lines of, it says, Kudsha brichu istakal b'oraisa bar'am. It says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Creator, looked in the Torah, and based on what it says in Torah, He created the world. It says, Alpaim shana kadma Torah la'olam. Torah was there before the world. Hashem looked in the Torah, and from the Torah He created the world. Which means that everything that exists, the time that we're living in, the struggles that we're going through, the difficulties that everyone around the world is going through now, and the specific struggles that each of us is having in our own personal life, all of it originates in Torah. And exactly how that works and what that means is another separate discussion, and I'd love to get carried away, but we're not going to get to any of the things I want to talk to about Shavuos. But everything that exists and everything that happens comes from Torah. Which means that there's nothing in the world that is unrelated to Torah. There's nothing in the world that doesn't have a message in the Torah that speaks to it. The fact that Torah was given on Har Sinai, more than 3,000 years ago, doesn't mean that the Torah is something which was written and its creation, its writing came to an end 3,300 years ago, and therefore it has no relevance to us today. And yes, obviously we follow what it says because Hashem gave it to us, but practically speaking, it's not really related to what we're going through today. That's not the case at all. That would be a very mistaken way of looking at it. Torah is Hashem's Chachma. Torah is the knowledge and the wisdom of the Creator, and based on that He created the world. So yes, the psukim were presented to Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai 3,300 years ago. That's true. Those psukim are one layer of expression, one manifestation of Hashem's Chachma. And Hashem's Chachma is eternal. Hashem knew when He gave the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu everything that was ever going to happen. So everything that happens until the end of time exists and has its origin in Torah, and Torah has guidance to address us how to cope with it and how to make the most of it. And more than how to make the most of it, how to actually make it something positive. So now, as we're approaching Shavuos, if we look into the Torah, what the Torah tells us and what we know about Shavuos, there's going to be messages, there are going to be important messages in there for us today and the things we're going through this week in the lead up to Shavuos. So let's start with what happened on Shavuos. Right, on Shavuos, very basic, Matan Torah, Hashem gave us the Torah. Now, Hashem gave us the Aseret HaDibros through Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai. If we look at the opening of the Aseret HaDibros, there's something there that seems to be almost like it really doesn't make any sense at all, if you think about it. Hashem opens up and starts talking to the Yidden. We've had this whole build-up, 7 weeks. We're traveling through the desert to get to Har Sinai so that we can get the Torah. And we get there, and Hashem says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. Asher hotzesecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am Hashem your God. I took you out of Egypt, and therefore you should pay attention and listen when I give you the Torah. It seems like it kind of makes sense, but it's not the best argument that Hashem has available for why we should listen to what He says. In addition to the fact that Hashem just took us out of Egypt, Hashem also happens to be the one who makes us exist right now. Hashem happens to be the one who created the world. Hashem happens to be the one who created time and space and the universe and everything that exists within the universe in time and space, including us. So Hashem could have very simply said, I am Hashem your God who created all of existence, and therefore you exist because I deem it so you should probably listen up. Right? And that would be, I guess, a kind of strict and gvurdik way of looking at it. We can look at it and say, look, Hashem could say same words, a bit of a different implication, a bit of a different tone. I am Hashem, your God, who created the world and made you exist. And it kind of makes sense that you should listen to me as a result of that. It kind of makes sense that we should listen to Hashem as our creator because we owe him a debt of gratitude for creating us. It makes sense that we should listen to Hashem, who's the creator, because Hashem knows what's up, being the creator of everything. So if Hashem could say to us, I am Hashem who created all of existence and created you and put you in there, why would he say, I am Hashem, your God, who took you out of Egypt? It makes sense if you just look at the claim in and of itself, but in the context of the other options Hashem has at his disposal, Mitzrayim doesn't seem to be the best option. The argument that Hashem could say, I created time, space, universe, existence, you, seems like it would be a stronger argument for why we should listen. So why did Hashem open up the Torah, I am Hashem, your God, who took you out of Egypt? And what it's ultimately going to come down to is another layer of meaning in those words, Asher hotzitzecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. Now, generally speaking, we as people who learn Torah and believe in Torah and know that what it says in Torah is true, we're well aware of the fact that Hashem makes miracles. Hashem is not limited by nature. Hashem can do things that are supernatural. Hashem can, do ultimately whatever he feels like. But the truth is that the way that we see it is kind of backwards. And it makes sense that we see it backwards because that's the way Hashem designed us. The way that we see things is there's a world, and there are laws of nature. There's gravity, and there's the way time works, and there's the way space works, and something can only be in one place and one time, and it's all the laws of nature. And that's reality. Hashem, as the creator of nature, happens to be able to override those and to do miracles. But a miracle is a chiddush, a miracle is a novelty, because really there's nature. Hashem, who is God, is able to override nature and to do things that are unnatural and things that are technically impossible according to the laws of nature. Why? Because Hashem's infinite. That's the way that we look at it. But the truth is, if we go far enough back in history, that's not really the right way of looking at it. That's not the best way of looking at it. The best way of looking at it is the opposite. Right? Hashem created the world. B'Sheshis Mei Bereshis, in the 6 days of creation, the beginning of Torah, Bereshis Bara Elokim, Hashem created the world. Hashem created time and space and heavens and earth, etc., etc., etc. What was there before Hashem did all that? What was there before Hashem created the world? Nothing. Hashem. That's all that existed was Hashem. And then what happened? Where did everything come from? Everything came from Hashem. That's why Hashem is the creator. Hashem created everything. Hashem just existed by definition. And then Hashem, chapta taiva, as they say, Hashem decided that he wants this universe, he wants the world to exist. And so he brought the world into being and made it exist. And the world that Hashem wanted to make exist is a world that has laws of nature, it has time and it has space, and it has all the laws of physics, etc., that govern how everything runs. So Hashem created all of those rules, and Hashem created a system that works according to those rules. And when we look at things this way, we look at things in terms of the bigger picture, taking the whole history of everything into account and going back from before creation, it becomes the opposite. The fact that Hashem can do a miracle that's not the chiddush, that's not the novelty. Right? The way that we look at it naturally is the standard way that we see things is that there are laws of nature, there's laws of physics, etc. And Hashem can break those laws if he wants. The truth is that ultimately there was just Hashem. And Hashem decided that he felt like having a world that runs according to the laws of nature, so he created those laws of nature because he felt like it. And he continues to make those laws of nature exist because he continues to feel like it. You know, the nature exists, you know, at Hashem's leisure because Hashem feels like it and makes it exist. So obviously, being that Hashem is the only thing that exists in and of himself, and Hashem makes nature exist because he feels like making it exist, it's not a chiddush that Hashem can break the rules of nature. The fact that nature exists is a novelty. The fact that there are rules and that there's gravity and rules of time and rules of space, that's all a novelty. The true original nature is that there's just Hashem. Hashem is infinite. And, you know, the truth is, if you really, strictly speaking, you know, and this gets a little bit deep, but we have to be careful when we say Hashem is infinite, depending on what we mean by that, because depending on what we mean, it might be wrong. There's a very fascinating statement in an old Sefer Kabbalah, Avodas HaKodesh, and it says that Kudsha Bricha Shleimosa Dekula, Hashem is absolutely infinite. What does infinite mean? Infinite means something that doesn't have any limits, something that doesn't have an end. Right? How many numbers are there? Infinite number of numbers, because whatever number you give, you could always add one more and do that number plus one, and then one more than that, and one more than that, and you can keep adding one forever. So that the range of numbers that's possible is infinite. There is no limit. If something's infinite, that means there is no limit. Now, we usually think of infinite in terms of there's no limit how big it is. There's no limit how many numbers there are. But if we sort of stretch our minds a little and loosen the way that we look at things, get a little bit more flexible up here, the range of numbers that's possible is not entirely infinite. It's infinite, it's unlimited, there's no limit on terms of how many numbers there can be. But the range of numbers is limited in terms of the fact that they're numbers and not tomatoes. Right? 1 is a number. A trillion is a number. And however it continues. Those are all numbers. They're not bricks, they're not chairs, they're not tables. So they're limited. They're limited by the fact that they're numbers and not something else. So they're infinite, they're unlimited in terms of how big they are. But Hashem created numbers to be numbers and not to be something else other than numbers. So they're limited to being numbers. In terms of how many numbers there are, it's infinite. How the range of numbers, how big the range of numbers is infinite. But it's not absolutely infinite because they're limited to being numbers and not something else. As soon as you can describe something, that means it's limited. Because when you describe something, right, in English, a word that describes something is an adjective, a describing word. The reason that adjectives, that describing words are so powerful and effective is because they help a person understand what you're referring to, because they limit. If there's a big chair and a small chair, and I tell you I'm talking about the big chair, you know I'm not talking about the small chair, because the big chair is not small, it's big. Every description, the point of a description is to help you understand what the person's referring to, because you limit it, you limit what you're saying to fit the description that you make and not to be something which it does not fit that description. The whole point of a description is that you limit. If it's blue, you describe it, it's blue, that means it's blue, it's not red or green or orange. If it's big, it's not small, etc., etc. If it's infinite, it's not finite. If I tell you that the range of numbers that can exist is infinitely large, then you know it's not finite, it's not limited. The range of numbers that exist doesn't stop at 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000 or 1,000,000,000,000 or 1,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000 because it's infinite. So the fact that it's infinite is a limitation. It's limited to being infinite, and it's not finite. It's a description that tells you it is something. It's not something else. The range of numbers is infinite in terms of how many numbers there are. It's not finite. It's not limited. So that is actually a limitation. When it comes to Hashem, it's very important to understand that No, I'm not going to go there. It's going to get a little bit out of control. I'm going to lose track myself. But when we talk about Hashem generally, what it says in Avodas HaKodesh is Kudsha Bricha Shleimusa Dekula. Hashem is absolutely infinite. Shleimusa, complete, Dekula, of everything, the most complete thing, absolutely complete and infinite. Just like Hashem, Yesh Lo Koyach B'Bilti Bal Gvul, Hashem has the ability of infinity. Just like Hashem has the ability of infinity, he also has the ability to limit himself. Because if we would say that Hashem has the ability of infinity, but not the ability to limit himself, that would be a limitation. Harei ata machasem mishleimusa. You are taking away from Hashem's infinity, Hashem's completeness. If you say Hashem can only be infinite, but can't be finite, Hashem can't limit himself, that's a limitation. And you know what that's called? There's a word for that. It's called kfirah. It's called saying there's something Hashem can't do. Any question you want to ask, is Hashem able to ... fill in the blank? It doesn't matter what you put in the blank, the answer always by definition needs to be yes. Because if you say that the answer is no, it's kfirah. Now there are some questions that we'll come up with that send our mind in a loop and are difficult to understand and difficult to explain, fine. But the fact is Hashem can do anything, including limit himself. Why? Because if you say that Hashem needs to be infinite and can't limit himself, then you've limited him to being infinite and to not being able to limit himself, which is a limitation. Which means that Hashem would not be infinite. So Hashem is absolutely infinite. You can't describe Hashem. Hashem doesn't have a color. Hashem doesn't have a shape. Hashem doesn't have a texture. Hashem doesn't have a size. The closest thing that Hashem has to a measurement is that Hashem is so infinite that is not even limited to being infinite and can also be finite if he so chooses. That's the only description that you could maybe say about Hashem without saying something incorrect. Right? And obviously we talk about Hashem and we use adjectives because we have to. But ultimately, all the things we say about Hashem are mesholim. They're all metaphors. When we talk about Hashem being kind and strong and chesed and gvura, those are not Hashem himself. Those themselves are also creations of Hashem, technically. Hashem is absolutely infinite. And that's what existed originally, just Hashem. And then Hashem says, I want to have a limited world. I want to have a world where people are going to have the opportunity to grow and to achieve in the face of adversity. And therefore, I'm going to create a world that's limited. A world that has laws of physics. A world that has laws of personality and personal character. A world in which people have a Yetzer Hara, in which they see negative things and they don't always see the bigger picture. They don't get to see everything the way it truly is. And that's going to give them the opportunity to grow and achieve. Hashem wants to create that, and so he did. The fact that Hashem can then do a miracle is not really a chiddush, it's not a novelty. Because the only reason that miracles don't happen all the time is because Hashem decided that it shouldn't be natural for miracles to happen. But when he decides to make a miracle, he can. Why? Because Hashem is unlimited. So we exist, and when Hashem wanted to create this world, Hashem wanted to create a world that, yes, it does have, it's a world that functions with rules, with a system. Now, a system, by definition, has rules. And rules, by definition, are limitations. They're a way that things work. There is mass, there is energy, there is gravity, and there are laws about the way that all these things interact. And there are laws of physics and laws of chemistry and laws of biology, and the way the world functions is with a system that's made up of laws. Each of these laws is a limitation. Right? Gravity largely brings things together. Brings something that's smaller and pulls it towards something that's way bigger. i.e., gravity doesn't make things go sideways. Gravity is not a color. Gravity is not a tomato, right? There are limitations. The laws of gravity are laws that limit the way things function. All the laws of physics, all the rules that make up the system of nature, of Teva. Hashem created Teva, Hashem created this system. It has rules, and the rules limit the way things work. A table is a table and not a chair. A table is not air. A table is not a concept. It's an object. Those are limitations. The fact that a table is a physical object and not an idea is a limitation. It's not an idea. It's limited to being a physical object and not an idea. It's limited to being something that fits the description. All the various things that you can add into the description of what a table is and isn't, those are limitations. A table is limited to being what it is. It's limited in terms of what it can do, in terms of what it can achieve. And that's true of everything that exists. And it's certainly true in terms of what we can achieve. Right? We talk about people have potential, have ability, koyach. Someone has a koyach, good koyach to be able to draw, koyach to be able to describe, to be able to visualize, whatever it is. Abilities that people have. What does it mean when someone has the ability to do something? It means that their personality, their characteristics, their nature makes them able to do something. Why are they able to do something? Because of the nature that they have. So the nature that the person has is responsible for what they can do. The reason that a person who, let's say, keep it very simple, who's what we would call smarter than someone else, will understand things better, will learn more quickly, maybe will learn more quickly and understand more deeply, let's say, than someone else, is because their combination of guf and nefesh, their brain and their seichel and their nefesh together, are more efficient, or let's say maybe more capable than those of someone else who doesn't learn as quickly or as deeply or as well. And so their more efficient and effective seichel in their guf and their nefesh together result in them being able to learn more. Someone who's stronger than someone else has muscles that are stronger, and therefore they can lift up something heavier. Why can they lift up more? They can lift up more because their body is stronger, their muscles have strength, and that strength allows them to pick things up. Now, no person's strength is infinite. No person's seichel is infinite. Which means that someone may be the smartest person who ever lived and ever will live. But there is a limit to, they may be able to understand more than anyone else ever. They may be able to understand things more quickly and more deeply, and etc., etc., etc. But there's still a limit. Why are they able to learn more than someone else? Because they have more capable koyach of seichel. They have a brain that's predisposed to learning more effectively, and they have a seichel in their nefesh that allows them to learn more effectively. Which means that the amount that they can learn is determined by the seichel in their nefesh and their brain. And the seichel in their nefesh and their brain can be measured. It may be extraordinary, it may be way more than anyone else ever, but there's still going to be some sort of number on it, and that number, that measurement of their seichel is going to determine how much they can understand. It's not going to be infinite, because seichel's not infinite. The reason they can learn more than someone else is because their seichel is stronger. The strength of their seichel allows them to learn more, which means that they're going to learn up to the limit of the capacity of their seichel, and not more. This table is, I don't know what, it's probably 5 feet. It's 5 feet, it's not more. It's rectangular, it's not a square. So this table is clearly defined. A person's seichel is clearly defined. Everything that exists, an idea is an idea and not a brick. Ideas to us, we think of them as, they're more abstract. It's not an object. And maybe we think of it as being less limited, but it's still limited because it's an idea and not a bookshelf. So everything that exists is limited. And that's the way it's supposed to be. This is the world that Hashem wanted us to live in. Why did Hashem want us to live in this world? For what? What's the point? The point is, right, and if we look at the description in Sfarim of Pnimiyas HaTorah, Chassidus and Kabbalah, about how Hashem created the world. Hashem first created, Olamus Ruchnim, spiritual worlds, and then after that Hashem created the world that we know. Which one's more important? Which one's more exciting? Now, there are a lot of reasons why we should be excited about Ruchnis, about spirituality, things that we think of, often we refer to as Shamayim, as heaven. Right? Shamayim means a couple of different things. Shamayim means the actual physical sky. But the sky is also a metaphor for that which exists Baruchnis, that which exists spiritually, which is not physical. Right? When we talk about Shamayim and Aretz, it literally means the physical sky and the physical ground. But the sky and the ground are also metaphors for that which exists Baruchnius, spiritually, and the physical world that we actually see and hear and feel and taste and smell. Why? Because the physical world that we can sense with our senses is something that we're in immediate contact with. We can relate to it very well. It's very tangible, just like the ground, just like the Aretz. It's an immediate contact. We relate to it well, and it's tangible. The sky is more distant. It's less tangible. And we don't relate to it as strongly. We don't have as immediate a relationship with it. Same is true of Ruchnias, things that are spiritual. It's no less real. Something that exists, a malach, let's say an angel. Right? Angels are real. But they're not physical. It's difficult. We all believe and know that angels exist, but we also all know that we kind of don't really have a grip on what they actually are. Why? Because they're spiritual. They're not tangible. We don't have an immediate relationship with them. We don't relate to them closely. They're distant to us. Just like Shamayim. So Shamayim, the sky, is a metaphor. When we say heavens, we talk about heavens. Heavens often is used in the context of that which exists Baruchni, is the spiritual rather than the material. So Hashem created the spiritual, and then after all of that, the spiritual is kind of, let's call it like stepping stones, right? We have Hashem, who's completely infinite, and then Hashem created these various sort of spiritual layers of reality. They're stepping stones to get to the physical world that we know, which is the most limited. It has the least resemblance to Hashem. And this is the last layer of reality. The last olam, the last layer of reality that Hashem created is the physical reality that we know. Now, to us, especially people who are learning Pnimiyas HaTorah, learning Chassidus, learning Kabbalah, there's a very strong emphasis on appreciating the value and how amazing things that are spiritual, that are not limited by Gashmis, things that are not limited by the laws of physics, laws of nature are. And that's why we're always pursuing, trying to connect and get more, spiritually in touch. Why? Because spirituality is not limited the same way that physicality is. It's a good thing to get in touch with. It's a good thing to try to connect to. It's a good thing to try to bring into our lives. So in terms of, what we would think of as being spiritually connected to Hashem, spiritual layers of reality are closer to Hashem and more connected to Hashem than the world that we know. The world that we know is, in terms of klippa, of shells, of concealment. In the world that we know, Hashem is way more concealed to us than he is to the angels. The angels see Hashem, relate to Hashem a lot more directly than we do. So it seems like the reality that they exist in, these olamas ruchniim, these spiritual layers of reality, are better, superior than ours. And in some ways they are. But now there's an expression that you always find something in the last place you look. Now, the reason, it's a bit of a silly statement in a way, because the reason you find something in the last place you look is because when you find what you're looking for, you stop looking. So by definition, you're always going to find something in the last place you look, because the reason you were looking was because you wanted to find something. When you found the thing that you were looking for, and that's the reason you were looking, you're not going to look anymore. So of course, by definition, you're always going to find something in the last place you look. Now, obviously, I'm not discounting the value of that expression at all, because what it means to say is you always find something in the last place you think to look. And you know what? Even that, it's like, well, that's what you think. But If it wouldn't have been there, you would have thought of another place to look. It's not like you look every single possible place on planet Earth before you find something. Because if that was the case, we'd never find anything. Fine. But ultimately, you always find something in the last place you look. Why? Because once you get to the thing that you want, you stop looking. Right? If you see someone looking for something, you walk into a room and you see someone in there frantically picking things up, putting things down, taking things off of shelf, looking behind them, putting things back, opening drawers, taking things out, putting them back. You walk in, you know that this person's looking for something important. You have no idea what it is. Are they looking for their keys? Are they looking for a diamond ring that went missing? Are they looking for some cash? Are they looking for a gift they bought someone, a unique, irreplaceable gift? Who knows? Could be anything. Looking for the keys to the car and they're late to an appointment? Don't know. We know they're looking for something that they want very badly. You know how you can know what's the thing that they want? When they open a drawer and take something out, you look at what's in their hand. Is that the thing they want or not? Well, you take a look and see. Do they stop looking? If they stop looking, you know that's the thing they wanted. If they keep looking after they pick that thing up, you know that wasn't what they were looking for. They were looking for something, they picked it up, and then they kept looking. Why? Because they didn't get to the thing they wanted yet. So, yes, Shemayim, heavens, the Malachim were created, so to speak, before we were. And the Malachim are closer to Hashem than we are. And the Malachim resemble Hashem more than we do. And the Malachim, the angels, are more spiritually in touch than we are. And they relate to Hashem more directly than we do. And they love Hashem more strongly than we do, etc., etc. All of those things are true. But ultimately, what matters most? Does it matter how much something resembles Hashem and how close it is to Hashem? Or does it matter, is it more important how interested Hashem is in that thing and how much Hashem cares about it and wants it? Right? That's obviously ultimately going to be the thing that determines how valuable something is much more. The fact that it's important to Hashem and He wants it and cares about it, that makes it valuable more than all the other things combined. And if after Hashem created all of these spiritual layers of reality, all these olamas ruchnim and the angels and everything else, He kept on going and kept on creating subsequent layers until He created this layer of reality that we experience, that means that this is the one that He ultimately wanted all along. And He kept on going until He got here. He, so to speak, kaviyachol, found what He was looking for and He stopped looking. You find something in the last place you look, because when you find what you want, you stop looking. If the angels were more important to Hashem than we are, the angels existed before we did. He would have made the angels stop. Okay, I've got the angels, I'm good. But He didn't. The angels were a step on the way to get here. Hashem cares about a table more than an angel. Hashem cares about a brick more than an angel. Hashem cares about striking a match and lighting a candle on Erev Shabbos more than a malach, more than an angel, more than Atzilus, and more than all the spiritual things combined. Hashem cares more about putting on tefillin, about taking leather with parchment rolled up inside with parshas of the Torah and wrapping it around your arm and making a bracha and davening, more than all the angels and all the spiritual things combined. What Hashem ultimately is most interested in is the physical world. And that's why He created it. So we are the most distant from Hashem. The world that we know has the least resemblance to Hashem. Everything is so limited. You don't see Hashem anywhere. Right? Malachim, they daven, and the Gemara and the Midrashim tell us about how the angels daven, and there are different Malachim that have different names, and there are Srafim, there are angels that are on fire. Why? Because they see Hashem in front of their face. Of course they're on fire with passion and love for Hashem. Why? Because they see Him. We don't. We just see like stuff. We can put an extraordinary amount of time and effort into trying to have some sort of personal relationship with Hashem, which is the whole point of Chassidus ultimately. But we don't just naturally see Hashem, and angels do. Why? Because we live in a world that has more limitations and more definitions and a more strongly structured system than theirs. And the rules that define the nature of the world that we know are stronger and more limiting. And Hashem is more hidden. Hashem is less revealed. But ultimately, what Hashem wants, think about it this way. the reason that Hashem is interested in it ultimately is because it's a novelty. It's not a novelty, it's not exciting for angels to be inspired. They see Hashem with their eyes. So, of course, they're excited, they're inspired. There are angels that are literally called seraphim. They're called angels that are fire. They're on fire, they're burning because they're so overwhelmed by their experience and immediate proximity to Hashem that they're on fire with love for Hashem. Now, is that like exciting? I mean, it sounds pretty cool to us, right? But for Hashem, when one of these malachim starts davening to Hashem and praising Hashem, to singing to Hashem, is that really exciting? It's like, whatever. Of course it is. What do you expect from it? That's like if you could see Hashem to the degree that you were actually made out of fire and burning passionate love for Hashem because you see Him. Of course you're going to praise Hashem and sing. It's not a chiddush, it's not exciting. Take a person who sees things with physical eyes that are designed specifically not to see Hashem, and all the other four senses that are also designed specifically not to directly perceive Hashem, and to live in a world that the definition of this world is a world in which Hashem's presence is most concealed, is not readily apparent at all. Hashem is everywhere, but Hashem hides Himself everywhere. We don't get to see Hashem anywhere, or consciously sense or perceive Hashem anywhere, ever. To actually establish some sort of appreciation for Hashem and some sort of relationship for Hashem in this world is an incredible novelty. That's way super exciting for Hashem. And that's really the only thing that could excite Hashem. Because Hashem can have anything He wants. Now, Hashem is the creator of everything. Nothing existed until Hashem decided it could exist. And Hashem can decide that anything can exist, right? If you have someone, a good friend, a relative, someone who has a credit card that is unlimited, and they can swipe their credit card for $1 billion right now if they want to, and it'll go through, and they'll be able to pay the bill at the end of the month or today. It's going to be kind of hard to buy that person a gift that they're really, really going to appreciate. And yes, the thought counts and everything else, but to buy a gift that's going to be actually like really exciting for a person like that, it's not going to be easy to do. What you want to do if you want to buy a gift for someone like that that's exciting, you want to find something that the cost of obtaining that thing is not money. Money isn't going to get it for you. Something unique that you have to hike through the jungle and scale down a cliff in order to get, and you can't get that with money. You need to go and actually do it, and you bring it back, and it's something that person appreciates and understands that that's the only way to get it. That, assuming that it's something that actually has some sort of value to them, is going to be much more exciting. Because they couldn't just swipe their credit card and get it if they wanted to, right? It's a novelty. Something that's novel, it's new, it's something that is not just another one of those things that they could have if they feel like it. The more novel something is, the more exciting it is. Which is why the more a person has, just talking very simply, begashmias, simply, the harder it is to impress and to excite them. The harder it is to excite someone. If someone has very few things, it's not so hard to buy them something that's going to be exciting. So Hashem has angels, and Hashem has praise and davening and appreciation and all these things. But none of those things are novel. Hashem created a world, the world that we're in, and this is the one He cares about, right? Because this is the last thing He created. Everything else was just a stepping stone to get here. If those worlds and the angels and all of that was what Hashem wanted, He would have created them and stopped. But it wasn't. He wanted this. He wanted us here. And that's why He kept going and creating until He got here. That's the last layer of creation. The last layer of existence, of reality. Hashem created a world in which we don't naturally see Him. He's not naturally perceived. And when we do something novel, we bring Hashem into this world in a way that's unnatural, because this natural world is one in which Hashem is not naturally present, so to speak, that's novel. That's super exciting to Hashem, because Hashem created the world in a way that he's not naturally integrated into reality, into this layer of reality. Hashem's concealed and hidden and behind the scenes, everywhere but behind the scenes. And when we strike that match and light that candle on Erev Shabbos and make a bracha, Hashem asked us to do that. And when we do, we are now integrating Hashem into that wick and into that wax. We are actually taking something that was defined by the fact that Hashem was not integrated into it and integrating Hashem into it. And that's novel. A malach can't do that. An angel can't do that. Because an angel can't light a physical candle. It can praise Hashem from today till tomorrow. And it can be on fire with love for Hashem to the degree that its name is actually fire. But it can't bring Hashem into a physical candle, into physical wax, physical oil, physical wick. Can't bring Hashem into the physical parchment and leather of a pair of tefillin. That's a novelty. To take leather, to take the skin of a dead animal and to bring Hashem into it, that's a novelty. That's really new, and that's exciting for Hashem. Because the definition of this world is a place in which Hashem, we don't really see him. Hashem's not really integrated. Hashem is everywhere, but behind the scenes. And every mitzvah we do with our hands, with our mouths, with our bodies, every mitzvah we do, we're integrating Hashem into a world in which he is naturally not integrated. That's what Hashem always wanted. That's what Hashem created all the angels and everything else just to get down here, so there would be the opportunity of something novel, of something new, of something exciting. This is different. This is people who have a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Hara, and they have challenges and it's difficult. And every time we stand up to a challenge and we put in effort to do something despite the fact that it's difficult, that's super exciting for Hashem. Angels can never provide that excitement and pleasure and joy for Hashem, no matter how connected and spiritually in tune and on fire and everything else they are, because it's like automatic. Of course they are. We humans, it's difficult. And when we overcome some silly little challenge that doesn't make sense for it to be difficult, but it is, that's super exciting for Hashem. That's what Hashem always wanted. Hashem created all those spiritual layers of reality and Shamayim and heavens and angels and everything else just as a means of the stepping stones to get down here so that we could face a challenge, we could do something exciting. And when we do, right, a wax is limited. It's wax and it's not a wick. A wick is a wick and it's not wax. Both of them are not a brick or a tomato or a bookshelf. Limited. When we use it for a mitzvah, we now are integrating Hashem into it, and Hashem is the ultimate infinity. Hashem is so infinite that he's not limited to being infinite. He's not limited to being unlimited, and therefore is able to allow himself to be integrated into something physical and limited and small through our mitzvahs. Hashem gave us mitzvahs as the opportunity to achieve that thing which is novel. No malachim can achieve it. It doesn't exist in Atzilus or in Keser or in Ein Sof or before the Tzimtzum. The only place that it exists is here. Coming back to why the Aseret Dibros now start with Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Asher Hitzitzecha Meretz Mitzrayim. Right, Hashem took us out of Egypt. Egypt is Mitzrayim. If we change the nukudos, the vowels on the word Mitzrayim, same word, same letters, you look at it in an actual Sefer Torah, there are no vowels, there's no nukudos. You could correctly read those letters both as Mitzrayim or Mitzrayim. The limitations, the constraints, the things that hold us back, the things that limit, the things that define who and what we are, the things that define who and what everything is. The rules, the laws of physics, the laws of nature that decide what everything is and that it's not anything other than what it is, and how it functions and the way that it doesn't function any way other than the way that it functions. Those are all limitations, those are all Mitzrayim. And the reason Hashem took us out of Egypt was why Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, tell the Yidden, I'm taking you out of Mitzrayim so you can go to Har Sinai where I'm going to give you the Torah. Hashem says, I didn't just take you out of Mitzrayim just because. I took you out of Mitzrayim to give you the opportunity to do something that Malachim couldn't dream of doing. It says that when Malachim hear us say, answer, Amen Yeheshmei Rabbah, they're jealous. True, they praise Hashem, but they don't praise Hashem with a physical mouth. They don't make physical sound waves that are audible to a physical ear when they praise Hashem. Their praise is spiritual. They can't make a dir b'tachtonim. They can't integrate Hashem into physical reality the way that we can. We can do something that they can't even dream of, and they're jealous. They see us do mitzvahs, they hear us learn Torah, they hear us daven, and they're burning with jealousy. Because they know that as much as they praise Hashem, Hashem's infinitely more excited than one little mitzvah of a yid, more than everything that they do throughout all of time. And Hashem says, I'm taking you out of Egypt. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. I am giving you the Torah. Why? Asher hotzesicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am Mitzrayim. Asher hotzesicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I'm taking you out of being confined by the limitations of eretz, of land, of physical nature. Yes, you live in the world. Yes, your actions and your behavior generally is determined and managed by the laws of nature. But I'm now giving you the Torah and Har Sinai, which allows you to break out of all of those rules. Within those rules, you can integrate me. We can integrate Hashem, the one and only absolute infinite entity, into the limitation of this world. We can integrate Hashem into objects that are limited and defined and have a specific shape and a specific texture and a specific color and specific function and things that they can do and things that they can't do, and ways that they behave at different temperatures. All of these rules and limitations about everything, which make something so limited and so defined and so finite. And by just doing a mitzvah, boom, we integrate Hashem, absolute infinity, into that. So Hashem says, I am giving you the Torah. I am Hashem, Asher hotzesicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. True, I created the world. Yeah, big deal. Hashem created the world. What? It's a chiddush that Hashem created the world? Of course Hashem created the world. Hashem's infinite. Whoop-de-doo. It's not so exciting for Hashem. Angels are not so exciting for Hashem. You know what's exciting for Hashem? Taking us out of our limitations. When we stand up to the Yetzer Hara, we stand up to a challenge and say, I'm going to put in effort to do the right thing. We're overcoming limitations. We're integrating Hashem into our nature, into our heart, into our Yetzer Hara, into our brains, into our bodies. We do a mitzvah, we're integrating Hashem into the table. And just to illustrate how far this goes, there was a guy who did an experiment for fun, right? Because today, you want a sandwich? He actually made, I think it was a beef sandwich, a BLT. Beef, lettuce, and tomato sandwich, right? What does it entail to get a sandwich like that? Either you go to the store and you take the sandwich off the shelf and you swipe your credit card for $5 or $10 and you take the sandwich. Or if you want to be really ambitious and we do it ourselves, we go buy the bread and we buy maybe a spread if we want to put on ketchup or mayonnaise or mustard or all of the above, and we buy the beef and we buy the lettuce and we buy the tomato and we wash and check the lettuce ourselves and wash and slice the tomato ourselves. So much work for a sandwich. You know what people had to do once upon a time if they wanted a sandwich? They had to plow the ground. They had to plant wheat. They had to pray for rain. They had to wait for the wheat to grow. They had to harvest the wheat. They had to dry out the wheat. They had to grind the wheat into flour. They had to raise a cow and make sure that there was enough green grass and to move the cow from field to field so there was always enough grass to eat, and waiting for the cow to be big enough to shecht for meat, and then shecht the cow and grind the flour and mix the flour with water that they got from the well and a sourdough culture that they maintained because they didn't just buy yeast at the store. And then they're baking the bread and they have the meat from the cow that they raised and they shechted it, or had someone come and shecht it and they kashered it and processed it and got it ready to eat, and had to dig and plant the tomato plant and the ground for the lettuce and all of these things. The amount of effort that goes into, all involved into this sandwich that we eat, right? So when we eat a sandwich and we make a bracha, and we use the energy from the sandwich to do mitzvahs or to learn Torah, we're not just integrating Hashem into the sandwich. We're integrating Hashem into the bread and into the meat and the tomato and the lettuce and into the ground that the wheat was grown in and into the food that the person ate, which gave them the energy to plow the ground so that they could plant the wheat, and into the Hashem's being integrated into the water that was used to water the ground so that the wheat could grow. Because without that, we wouldn't have been able to make a bracha and use this energy, these calories from the sandwich to learn Torah and be Mekayim mitzvahs. The number of things and parts of the world into which we integrate Hashem every time we make a bracha, every time we do a little mitzvah is staggering. And so the excitement that we bring Hashem every time we do a mitzvah, the extent to which we integrate infinity, Hashem, absolute infinity, into a limited, defined little world every time we do a mitzvah is just, it's unimaginably exciting to Hashem. It's Mitzrayim. Super exciting to Hashem. And that's what this was always all about. So, Torah, we can look at it in so many different ways. And this is also, it also comes down to why, the truth is, there are Midrashim and Gemaras and Rashi, even. Rashi on Chumash. Makes this a little bit difficult to understand what's so exciting about Shavuos. What happened? Hashem gave us the Torah. The Torah was there 2,000 years before the world existed. Okay, fine, maybe it was there for Malachim, it wasn't there for us. Well, you know what? What did Yaakov do before he went to Lavan? Stop to learn Torah. Yaakov was on the way to Mitzrayim. What did he do? He sent Yehuda ahead to set up yeshiva so that when he gets there, he'll be able to learn Torah. They'll be able to learn Torah. The Yidden were learning Torah. The Gemara says that not only did the Avos and the Yidden learn Torah, they kept the mitzvahs, including mitzvahs to Rabbanon, before Hashem even gave the Torah. Why? They were in touch with Torah. They were enough spiritually in touch to be able to have a connection to Torah and to learn it, even though Hashem hadn't actually presented the Pesukim to them. So we were already learning Torah, we were already being Mekayim mitzvahs. What changed on Shavuos? Whoop-de-doo. So there was some thunder and lightning and Hashem spoke and freaked us out and we died a couple times and Hashem brought us back to life. That's what we're commemorating. And I have a Yom Tov to commemorate fanfare. It doesn't say, we don't say in davening, Zman, Tekes, the time of the fanfare and the presentation and that Hashem gave us the Torah. We're saying Zman Matan Torah Seinu. It's the time Hashem gave us the Torah. What do you mean? We had the Torah. We were learning it before. We were doing mitzvahs before. What happened on Shavuos? And so the Midrashim say, explain what happened. And we say in Hallel, right, coming off Rosh Chodesh, Hashamayim shamayim laHashem v'ha'aretz nosen livnei Adam. The Shamayim is for Hashem. Spirituality is for Hashem. Ha'aretz, the physical world Hashem gave to us. They're separate things. One doesn't have to do with the other. And that's the way it was naturally. Right? In the Malachim, when Moshe Rabbeinu went to Har Sinai to get the Torah, and the Malachim didn't want to give it to him. Why? Because they said, you're down there, physical world, and you do all these bad things, and people sin and do all these averas. The Torah doesn't belong down there. Torah belongs up here. Right? Spirituality is spirituality. Physical is physical. They're two separate things. And that's the way it is, right? Malachim, when the Malachim came to eat by Avraham Avinu, right? Rashi tells us, it says they ate. They didn't actually eat. They made it appear as though they ate. Why didn't they eat? Because they don't have a mouth and a throat and a stomach. They can't eat. They're angels. They did something that made it look like they were eating, but they didn't eat because they're not physical. Physical and spiritual are separate layers of reality and they can't interact. So how then are we supposed to make a dir b'tachtonim? How are we supposed to integrate the infinity of Hashem into this world if spirituality and physical are separate? Shamayim laHashem v'ha'aretz nosen livnei Adam. So the Midrash says that there's a mashal. It's like Hashem, it's a mashal, what is this like? It's like there was a king. And he said there are two cities, and in Syria and Rome are the cities in the Midrash. And the residents of each city can't go to the other city. The residents of Syria can't go to Rome can't go to Syria. So too, Hashem created all the layers of reality, all the worlds, in such a way that that which exists in one layer of reality can't interact with that which exists in another layer of reality. Angels can't be physical. We can't be spiritual. We are physical. Angels are spiritual. It's the way it is. And we're separate. There's no interaction. We're on different graphs, on different charts. And then what happened, says the Medrash in the Mashal, the king nullified the Gzeira, Bitolas Gzeira, and he said that the resonance of the two cities can come together. So too, by Matan Torah, what does it say? Zman? It doesn't say Zman Hascholas Torah Seinu. We don't say in davening it's the time when the Torah began. It didn't begin. It doesn't say the beginning of our learning Torah. Zman Matan Torah Seinu. This was the time. We were learning Torah before because we wanted to learn it. Torah was there, it existed, and we learned it. And like we discussed before, we're only able to do things which we're able to do. We're not able to integrate Hashem into the world. It's not something that we have the ability to do naturally. But now Zman Matan Torah Seinu. Hashem gave us the Torah. Hashem gave us the Torah. Hashem said, I'm giving you the Torah. Now the Torah was here and you've been learning it, but you've been learning it of your own initiative. Now Matan Torah Hashem says, Anochi, I am giving you the Torah. Now, after Hashem gave us the Torah, now it says, Elyonim Tachtonim Yalel Elyonim, Elyonim Yerdu L'Tachtonim, that which is above the spirituality can now come down and interact with the physical world through Torah and mitzvahs when we do that. And the physical can be elevated, Tachtonim Yalel Elyonim. That's what changed. The Torah was always there. But Torah was spiritual. It wasn't really able to allow Hashem to be integrated into the world. When we do a chumash, a siddur, you have to treat it with respect. It doesn't go on the floor, it doesn't go in the garbage, it doesn't go in the bathroom. Why? It's halik. I mean, it's halik, it's holy. Because it says in a book that you're not allowed to when it's holy. When you say that something's holy, that it's halik, that it has kedusha, it's a real thing. When you learn Torah, daven with a sefer, you're actually integrating Hashem into the fabric of that book, into the paper, into the ink. You have to treat that book with respect because Hashem integrated into it. And we do that to varying degrees. Every mitzvah that we do, every word of Torah that we learn. Why? Because Hashem said, I'm giving you the Torah and I'm giving you the ability to do this. It's Zman Matan Torah Seinu. It's the time when we weren't just taking the Torah of our own initiative, and therefore what we were able to achieve through Torah was limited by what we're actually able to do. This was the time when Hashem gave us the Torah. Hashem said, I want you to learn Torah. I want you to do mitzvahs. I'm giving the Torah to you. When we learn Torah now, we're learning Torah on Hashem's terms, with Hashem's credit, with Hashem's ability. He gave it to us and asked us to do it. When we Mekayim mitzvahs now, we're doing it because Hashem asked us to. Hashem gave us the Torah. Hashem said, go do this. We're doing it with Hashem's koiches. So what happened on Matan Torah was the real Yetzias Mitzrayim. Hashem gave us the Torah. What we celebrate on Shavuos is the fact that Hashem gave us the Torah, and when we learn Torah and when we fulfill mitzvahs, we are bringing infinity into our bodies, into our environments, into our minds, into our hearts, into our neshamas, into our guf, into our body, into our home, into our surroundings, into the world. And just this perspective, if we can look at this and understand what this is, why Hashem said, Asher hotzeisecha me'eretz Mitzrayim, times are difficult. Baruch Hashem, largely it's settling down for most people. Still not easy, and a lot of people have, unfortunately, tremendous baggage that they're going to be dealing with for a long time as a result of what we're going through. It's difficult. No one in their right mind would try to say that it's not. But when we understand that all of this, first of all, it's not random. It's not because of the virus, even though it's the virus that's causing it. Ultimately, it's because Hashem determined that for whatever reason, this is what is necessary and correct right now. And through all of this, we have the ability, no matter what we're going through, we have the ability, every pasuk of Torah that we learn, every word of Torah that we say, every little mitzvah that we do, every nickel that we put in the pushka, every dime, every little thing that we do, every tiny little bit of chesed that we do, every bit of avos Yisrael is Yetzias Mitzrayim. We are integrating, we are leaving behind the limitations of reality because we're integrating Hashem into ourselves. We're literally becoming infinite every time we do that. That's what Shavuos is about. Shavuos is about the fact that it doesn't matter what we're going through, it doesn't matter where we are, or what's happening, we have the ability to bring meaning and purpose into every point in space and every moment in time and every part of our days, every part of our lives. Because every little bit of Torah mitzvahs that we do, we're integrating Hashem into the world and bringing the world one step closer to Dir B'Tachtonim, to making the world a place in which Hashem is integrated and at home and comfortable, which is the point of it all. We're bringing the world one step closer to being in a state of Mashiach. And when we look at things that way and understand that, it's not that life is difficult, but you know what? Hashem can override that. It's the other way around. Hashem comes first. Hashem is infinite. Hashem decided for whatever reason that things should be the way they are, and that's why they are. And it's difficult, but number one, it has a reason. It's not random. It's not because of China. It's not because of the virus. It's not... Again, I'm not discounting the fact that those are the vehicles by means of which this was caused. Whatever it is. I don't want to get too carried away, but... Ultimately, that's not why. The ultimate why is because Hashem decided that this is the correct thing right now. And through thick and thin, no matter what we're going through, we have the ability to integrate infinity, integrate Hashem into ourselves. Why? Because Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Etzisecha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, on Shavuos, Hashem gave us the Torah, gave us the ability to connect to Him, to absolute infinity, and bring it into the world and allow the physical reality to become more infinite in terms of the extent to which Hashem is integrated into it, than the angels, than the Srafim, than all the spiritual layers of reality and everything that exists before us. Because for Hashem to be integrated, for infinity to be integrated into a table, that's really infinite. That's way more infinite than an angel. That's two things that shouldn't even be able to coexist, and they do. And this is the infinity that we have the ability to achieve, and the meaning and purpose. We can realize the purpose of existence every minute of every day and in every part of our lives. Every word of Torah we learn, every pasuk we say, every little mitzvah that we do. We are literally integrating infinity, integrating Hashem into our bodies, into our homes. And this is the gift of Shavuos. This is what Hashem gave us on Shavuos. Hashem gave us this ability to integrate infinity, integrate Hashem, Shleimusa Dekula, into ourselves, our bodies, our nefesh, our environment, and the entire world. Just by learning Torah, just by doing mitzvahs. And even when things are difficult and things it can be very tough. The fact that we know that there's a purpose, and that despite that we can bring purpose into everything, we can bring meaning into everything, we can bring Hashem into everything. It changes things completely if we can get to the point where we see that as being a real thing. And that's perhaps the biggest challenge of it all, is to really take these ideas and connect with them in a way that they're actually personally real to us. And when we do, it's a game changer. The reality of that is that there's not like a moment where we connect and now everything's changed forever. The reality of it is that it's baby steps, and we connect with it a bit more and a bit more and a bit more and a bit more, and those baby steps add up very quickly. Anyways, I want to wish everyone that we should all be Mekabel the Torah b'simcha or b'pnimius. We should receive the Torah with joy and deeply internally. It should really become a part of who we are. We should integrate it into who we are, internalize it, and make it really part of our conscious experience and part of the way we see the world. And b'simcha. And Hashem should give us a reality in which we don't need to work so hard to have simcha. We should have Mashiach, and we should not need to learn and talk about it anymore. We should experience it. Chayil Mamish. Good Yom Tov.